Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man, I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by. So you guys probably know we just got done with Title Tuesday just a minute ago, and so I have a really nice game for you. There's a guy that's been kind of in the scene for about 5 or 6 years now, kind of like a nice, like heartfelt story. His name is Tanitoluwa Adewumi, also known as Tani. He's that little kid. He's been kind of, hanging around the scene for like a little while. Hikaru Nakamura won the 2019 U.S. Chess Championship, and he kind of played a little game with him, if you caught that. But he's been talked about pretty heavily, so he made a presence in this Title Tuesday. So I got Wesley So versus Tani real quick, and this is about round number 4, the 4th game that we played in Title Tuesday. So all of my people in the Philippines, I would say maraming salamat. Anybody else from around the world, I appreciate you guys very much. But if you guys are ready to go, man, let's take a look. All right, man, so we got the move D4. We got knight to F6, so we start off with an Indian game. We do see knight to F3, and we have what's known as the knight's variation. I bet you can't guess why. Of course, it's because we see knights on the board. We got the move E6, we got G3, and then we have, drumroll, B5. Now, it might look kind of strange, but this is one of the top moves in the position. You are basically telling whites, I don't really want you to play C4 or even put a knight on C3 without some consequences. And you are wanting to fianchetto this bishop to counter this bishop. So instead of going B6 and maybe later going B5, you just say, hey, man, I'm going to go B5 immediately and get my expansion on the queen side rolling. We do see the move a bishop to G5. We got bishop B7. We do see the move E3. And this kind of has some Polish vibes with it. You kind of know how people don't start the game with like B4 or, you'll play like D4 and they'll play like B5. And you're like, what in the world is this, bro? Kind of has that same feel to it. We do see the move H6. Now, because we did see the move E3 by white, we are putting a subtle but direct attack on this pawn that you have so lovely flung out into the, cosmos of the board. So you kind of have to do something to defend it. And, I kind of love these positions that you get into where you kind of have forcing lines. So, you usually only have like 2 or 3 moves that you have to kind of remember. It streamlines everything, gets things a little easier to study. And then you always have the possibility that somebody might, out of the couple of moves that you have possible, pick the wrong move. So, it can be pretty exciting. But like I said, we did get up to here. We got H6. We got bishop taking F6, queen taking F6, and then we do see knight B to D2. So not only are you attacking B5, which, would be great to win on a good day, you do have your knight F3 double attacked. You did push the G and the E pawn, so your knight is kind of hanging out there in the middle of nowhere by itself. So you got to defend it some kind of way. So we do see knight B to D2, and then we do see the move A6. Black, recognizing that their pawn was hit, so we got to get that taken care of. We do see bishop to G2, kind of flowing forward, naturally. We do see the move C5. We got castles by white. Queen goes back to D8, and then we do see knight to E5. And this is the novelty of the game. Kind of crazy because, when you're looking at your position as white, this is a super duper juicy square. So, why not, take up residence there and live there rent free? So, like I said, we do see knight to E5, bishop takes G2. We got king taking G2. Then we do see the move rook to A7. Now, rook to A7 is not a bad move. It's just not absolutely necessary in this position. Usually when you have a bishop barreling down this diagonal, that's really kind of when you want to go like rook to A7. But we don't have the bishop anymore, so you don't absolutely have to make that move. Moves like D6 are possible, just kind of kicking this knight away from its beautiful home. But like I said, we do see rook to A7. We got the move C3. We got D6, now kicking the knight away. We do see knight E back to F3. We got bishop to E7. We got A4. Now, a lot of the times, it's not always mandatory, but when you see this kind of a structure, one of the big ideas is to go ahead and play A4 and try to, weaken that structure. A lot of times when you have like a rook on A8 and it is underdeveloped, it's undefended, you don't have a lot of development over here, it can be an issue for your opponent, like on either side, to kind of play this and you're threatening to kind of rip things open and maybe win a pawn type stuff. So, but it's a good idea nonetheless. We do see queen going to B6. we got the move d5. And the interesting thing in this position, Tani takes 35 seconds to play his move. I feel like he's sitting there thinking, I mean, is there a trap right here with this or something? Because, I mean, it just kind of seems like you just, you know, take it. Also, probably what he was considering was the fact that, I mean, taking the pawn, he is going to be damaging his structure, trying to make sure that there was no kind of drawbacks to that. But this is really just a pawn. We do see pawn taking d5. We got queen up to b3. And, you know, we kind of have like some possibilities here. Pawn takes, like, you know, if we do see pawn taking and then queen taking, the queen can take, and you do have this pawn pinned. Like I said, you kind of always have issues in this corner in kind of Queen's Gambit type situations, Queen's Indian type situations, you know, where when this bishop is gone off this diagonal, you know, you do have kind of some issues with your rook. So you got to be kind of careful. We do see the move c4, trying to knock the queen away. We got queen going to c2. And yes, white is down a entire pawn, but if you notice, they do have a really, really juicy square on d4 that a knight can just kind of plop in on. These pawns are not the healthiest ever. They are doubled, and you really don't have a good way to kind of push the pawn. So, you know, Wesley So has given up a pawn, but he is trying to play like a positional type of a game. We do see castles by black. We got queen going to f5, immediately hitting the weakness that we have created earlier. Pawn takes a4, and then you do see queen taking d5. And really, both players are as solid as can be here. You know, they're really, it's pretty much just like this much of an advantage for white. But we have actually reached a position. There's actually a nice positional move that Tani plays. It's not, I mean, there's definitely like a bunch of different moves you could play in a position. But I wonder if you can guess what move Tani plays here. Go ahead and try to figure that out. Okay, so like I said, there are other moves that are like just as good, you know, as this move that he plays. But he does recognize that his structure. So when you look at the structure, you know, you do have doubled rook pawns, which is not the absolute best. This pawn is kind of hard to protect, stuff like that. So he actually plays the move queen to b5 in this position. And like I said, the computer thinks it's somewhat of an inaccuracy, but there is a lot of logic behind why he plays this move. You could have said, I mean, there were other moves. You could have said like queen takes the pawn down there. You could have said rook c7, even rook over to c8. I mean, there were a lot of different moves, but like I said, if you're Tani, one of the things you do have to be kind of paying attention to and thinking about is, you know, my structure is not the best right here. You know, I kind of have this backward pawn right here. This pawn is really weak. So, you know, what better thing to do than to try to correct my structure? So if you do have queen to b5, if you did see something like this, this would be really good for black because now you have just corrected all of your pawns and you are up a pawn still. So it is a nice, you know, kind of try. Wesley So's not really the type to go for it, so that is why we do not see the queen taking on b5. And instead, Wesley So says, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just grab this pawn for freebie. Queen takes c4, and we are just going to be, you know, a pretty good looking on material. So we have strapped black with an isolated pawn, and then they have these double pawns right here. So white is definitely for choice in this position here. We do see the move d5. You know, Tani is really trying to push this possibility home that the queen would take here, but Wesley So says, bro, I'm not capturing and helping you out. So we do see queen going back to a2. We got knight over to d7, and then we do see the move knight to d4. And this is actually a critical point in the game here. It's very important that you make the correct move because if not, the game can go south very quickly for you. Like I said, you know, black structure is a little bit bad. You have some issues. You have this pawn that's a little bit weak and is hit by the queen. You know, you do have a threat coming up if you are paying attention. But unfortunately, Tani does not recognize it. He goes queen to d3, which might seem like it makes a lot of sense because it's kind of centered around, you know, the thought of always looking and trying to see like what kind of undefended pieces your opponent has in their position. But you have to kind of pay attention to your own undefended pieces. The problem with the queen coming down here is you have deserted the control and protection of c6. So now Wesley So takes full advantage of that. And now he has hit the rook and he has hit the bishop, and you cannot protect both of them. And you are getting a little bit more valuable piece than this knight right here. Also, the queen is kind of trapping themselves on white side of the board, so you can lose your queen pretty easily. So if we actually go back in this position, after the knight went to d4, it was absolutely essential that you either went back to b6 or b7. This would have been a very good move because it would have held this pawn right here and it would have prevented this. And it would have given black enough time to try to, like, you know, go bishop f6 or even knight f6 and kind of take care of the problems that were in the position. But like I said, we did not see that. We saw knight to c6, and then, I mean, you pretty much have to go all in at this point. We got queen taking d2, the knight takes a7, we got knight down to e5. We do see queen taking a4, and then we do see the move knight to c4. And just like before when Tani was having to focus and make sure that he was paying attention to the threats, Wesley So has to do the same thing right here. So one of the really hard things that I think, like, a lot of players up to a certain point have a hard time with is when you know your position is completely winning and you're on the attack, you really don't usually stop to think, well, maybe I should defend my position somewhat. Because, I mean, you're just so willing to attack. Many games have been lost because people have just went full steam ahead and they've just been attacking, and then they left themselves into a checkmate, or, you know, they're losing material on their own side. So you have to know when you have to switch from attacking to defending. And that is something that Wesley So does right here. He's recognizing that this knight is going to be taking here. The queen has pinned this pawn down, and it's going to be forking the king and the queen. So instead of making the blunder of this move right here, it wouldn't be like a game-losing blunder, but it would just basically equalize the game. You know, you would be looking at this, and you would be dropping that. So it's not like you're losing, but I mean, you have made the game pretty hard for you. So recognizing that, Wesley So says, hey man, let me just kind of take a second and let me just make sure that I'm not, you know, messing my position up. So he does go down king to g1 now. So now that threat is not there. We do see bishop going to c5. Now, it is possible in this position, and it is one of the best moves, to go queen takes a6 here. And you're not really hanging anything at this point. You know, we do have threats of stuff right here. We do have this knight hit, but queen taking a6 would take care of that. But it is also very possible to do what Wesley So did and just said, hey man, I'm okay defending for a little while. Knight goes to c6. We got bishop taking e3. And this is an interesting idea, but white has the possibility of just kind of parrying this whole attack. We do see pawn taking e3, queen taking e3 with check, and we just simply move the rook to f2. And there really isn't a follow-up here if you are black. We got the move f5. Of course, you would love to try to rip stuff open, but you are not going to get the time. We do see queen coming back to d1. And like I said, you know, white was very able to take the pawn on a6. But Wesley So just says, hey, man, I'm playing the long game. I'm going to go ahead and just defend for a little while. At some point, his attack is going to fizzle. After queen to d1, we do see queen going back to c5. But it's that d4 square I was telling you guys about a long time ago. You are in a situation where this knight is going to just come back and live on that beautiful golden square. And there really isn't a whole lot that black can do here. The queen is now cut off from the king. You got the move f4, pawn takes f4. You got knight going down to e3, really hoping that you can get something rolling, but we just see the move queen to e2. And it is in this position that Wesley So wins the game on time. But just kind of going a little bit further in the position, you know, really, if you're black, what do you play here? I mean, so, you know, the position is closed as far as this rook is concerned. It's going to take you a few moves to kind of get over here, you know, as far as like the queen is concerned. Your knight is currently hanging, so you have to try to kind of do something with that. You got knight to e6 that could possibly come up, forking these two pieces. This pawn is hit. So you're really just kind of in a situation where, I mean, you just don't really have anything that you can do as black, and you're down an entire piece. So that is that game. So Malak, I see Wesley So in this one. But like I said, Tani is definitely up and coming. And you know, the crazy thing is he's actually gotten 3 international master norms already. But they changed some rules a couple years ago. And so like he now has to get like another norm. It's kind of weird. I kind of feel like they can just go ahead and give him to the international master title. And then he can be good to go. But he is currently a FIDE master. So, you know, he gonna get there though. But I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by, and I'm going to catch you guys next time.